Everybody, and welcome to Scouting the League. We are excited to have friend of the program, scout and all things expert on the running back position today, Dane Vandernat, with us. And before we jump in with Dane, we will get some CFL updates, some highlights, and perhaps some philosophy. How does he view that running back position? But before we do that, make sure you head over, like, subscribe, and share this podcast wherever you are listening and watching, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or that video portion. If you want to see these two lovely faces, head over to YouTube, check those out, share this one with a friend. Again, if you love running backs, maybe you don't ever want your team to draft a running back, or maybe there's a running back in this draft. Hey, let's go get him at the top of the first round, because we'll see where Dane likes him. I think he could certainly be in that conversation. But whatever you are doing, make sure you're hitting those buttons, following us everywhere you are at. I am Rodrik David at Right Step ADV is where you can find me. RSAFootball.com is my website. Dane Vandernat is at DVandernat on Twitter. Make sure you check him out. Comment, leave him notes, be kind. If you want to throw punches, throw them over my direction. But again, I'd imagine Dane can take it. He's a tough guy. So whatever you're doing, throw some good questions out there. If there's a specific running back you want us to hit on at some point, maybe grab some notes from Dane. Make sure you hit that as well. Make sure you check out our partners over at BlueMaca.com. Use code Scouting20 for those insoles that will improve your performance. Let them know we sent you as well. Check out thescoutingcommunity.com if you're a scout or aspiring scout, and in all things, make sure you're just following, interacting, letting us know what you think. But let's get into it today on running backs. Let's put the positive. The CFL is done. The Grey Cup has been won. Hamilton had a good season, came up a little short. Talk about, again, that experience in the CFL and kind of what's on the table for you now.
Yeah, so it was great. Wife and I got a chance to get up to Hamilton for our Eastern Final game there against Montreal, and it was kind of cool because it's my wife's first time ever in Canada, so
Right.
got to go check some boxes. But at any rate, it was awesome environment for us to go up there and see it, and unfortunately, it came up a little short. Very competitive game, and Montreal ended up beating us on the last play field goal, so. They went ahead and went and played Saskatchewan in the Grey Cup and ultimately fell to Saskatchewan. So kudos to the Rough Riders and to Montreal for making it there. And hopefully Hamilton will get a chance to get back in that Eastern Final and have a different outcome next season.
Yeah, certainly. And that's where the scouts certainly come in. Are you looking at current roster, looking at future roster? Really, what's as you think about these next, 2 months, 3 months? Of course, there's going to be the window where CFL players can come down, work out for NFL teams at some point. What is the bulk of what you're doing scouting wise in the next couple months?
Yeah, no, and just even on the NFL workouts, it's incredible. I think we've had 11 workouts from our players from
good.
Hamilton down with NFL clubs. So
Yeah.
certainly some of our guys are really getting noticed. And I'm selfishly, I don't want them to get signed by an NFL team, but on the other hand, it's obviously great for those young men. And they've certainly earned a lot of these opportunities, and hopefully they may get a couple. But really, Rodrik, as you know, I mean, January is All-Star season, really. So, excuse me, anticipating going. And I think this year I'll probably be down at CGS. Looking forward to going down College Gridiron Showcase for first time for myself.
Yeah.
And then I'll go head over to Florida and go hit the American Bowl, which is a new All-Star game that I'm sure your listeners are familiar with. And then, of course, I'll be down in Mobile, Sport Management Worldwide, which is, online educator. I teach a couple classes through, including a scouting apprenticeship class. We do a big function down in Mobile. They do a little social at Veets and then go out to practice and go watch some film. So I'll be down at Senior Bowl in Mobile at the end of next month. So as always, looking forward to getting down there, and hopefully Wenzel's brings, some good red beans and rice for me, and we'll go do some oyster shucking.
Yeah, no question. Again, Wenzel's is one of these stops you have to make if you end up down in Mobile. Again, if you've ever been down there, it was where I tried my first raw oysters clear back in I believe it was 2014 at that point, my time with the Tennessee Titans and the coaching staff and scouting staff down there. So always a good time. And yeah, like I said, the College Gridiron Showcase, outstanding experience. Really excited about that. And for anybody asking, not only are NFL scouts going to be there, but obviously CFL scouts are going to be the great opportunity. It is one of those things that every agent, every player I'm working with, if there is a question about their NFL future, have to consider the CFL. As Dane said, there are plenty of guys getting workouts. The opportunity will present itself. You put good film out there, the NFL will find you. American Bowl, of course. Yeah, we've had Scott Phillips on and what he's doing with that game, and just a lot of good things and a little bit of travel, which is good, and a lot of good football and along the way. So let's get into running backs, and again, we're going to talk about three today. We're going to talk about Jeremiyah Love, who is kind of Love and everybody else in this class, similar to what it was last year with Ashton Jeanty and everybody else. We're going to talk Jonah Coleman of Washington, little bit different stylistically, some really good numbers. And then we're going to talk Jamal Haynes at Georgia Tech, who's going to be a fun conversation. But before we talk specifics, running back philosophy. Again, it comes up every year. Hey, do you invest in it? Do we even need a running back? Do we just sign a bunch of UDFAs? If you were going to have a philosophy, just generally speaking, Dane, are you hey, let's get a workhorse, let's ride him, or hey, let's find some maybe day 3 guys, let's bring it running back by committee, kind of have a couple different styles? Kind of where do you tend to lean?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Rodrik, as you know, man, if you can get a difference maker in the draft, then you always want to go get that guy. Yes, the running back position in general has been devalued in the last decade or so. I do think you're starting to see a little bit of a bounce back. I do think we're obviously starting to see some of these running backs get some contracts that they've earned and deserved. But obviously, the nature of the position is you're going to be taking a pounding. Your body, the wear and tear, you generally don't get a lot of miles on that. Derrick Henry right now is looking like a unicorn of unicorns, right? For his really durability and ability to continue going. But I guess when you're 250 pounds, you're just built a little bit different.
It helps.
So obviously, but most running backs aren't. If you're 250 pounds, you're probably playing defensive end right now in
Yep.
college football in the NFL, and you're probably making more money doing that. So it may not be a terrible career investment, but in general, I think, obviously if you can go we're going to touch on Jeremiyah Love. I think, he's going to be arguably the top running back in this class. If you can get a guy like him and you obviously have a need for a running back, then it could be a marriage made in heaven. For us, during my time at the Raiders, we drafted Latavius Murray in the 6th round. We had him on our board, I think, in either the 3rd or the 4th. So, for us, we were able to get good running backs that fell down the draft a little bit. And, Latavius for us was a very productive back. He had size, he had speed, he had all the qualities really that we were looking for. And we felt he was undervalued a little bit and ended up being a quality ad for us. So I do think you can find good value on day 3 in the draft. Obviously, even after the draft, getting undrafted guys. So, when we're talking running backs, as you know, and as our scouting community knows, it depends on what you can do for the team, right? Are you a bell cow? Are you just a 3rd down back? Are you a change of pace guy? Can you run with power? Do you have elusiveness or explosiveness, ability to make guys miss? And I think that's where, especially young evaluators, kind of miss some starting out in this business. It's that, hey, look, yeah, he was able to make college guys miss, but he doesn't really have that skill set, or he doesn't have that high-end elite trait that's going to consistently make NFL linebackers miss, or NFL safeties and defensive ends miss. So, really it's an elite bunch that end up being day 1, day 2 backs. And then you get a lot of guys on day 3 that are going to be more role players or developmental types. So, for me, you can get those guys oftentimes on day 3, understanding, just like with Latavius for us. His rookie season wasn't when he made the greatest impact for the Oakland Raiders, but his sophomore, his junior years, he was particularly productive for us. And, we were able to, realize some of that potential, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we go back to last year. It was, again, that Ashton Jeanty was kind of that guy. There were some pass game questions, just enough on film where you could probably feel good about it, the mentality, the person. Jeremiyah Love has all of it on film. This is a 3-and-done guy that probably, I'm sure Notre Dame predicted it. Again, he was impactful as a freshman, and then was a dude as a sophomore and junior. Again, may have been a borderline first round pick after he comes out after a year or two. Again, that kind of special talent. Really consistent career production. You're talking 6.7 career average per rush, which again, that certainly meets the mark. You're talking 6.9 yards per carry each of the last 2 years, 36 touchdowns, 114 yards per game this year, averaging over 100. Those are all big numbers. And again, 63 career catches as well, which is big for him. Not probably the thick body type Ashton Jeanty was, but again, without just going on and gushing, which again I've already been doing about Jeremiyah Love. What does he bring to the table that really gets you excited? And again, kind of where do you see him going?
Yeah, and Rodrik, I think it's easy to gush about Jeremiyah, right? I mean, let's be honest, he was a Heisman finalist for a reason. Now, hey, look, college production and even Heisman finalist doesn't automatically equate to NFL stardom or NFL value, but I think those things do act in his favor, right? Because we understand this has been a productive player. And you hit on it, right? 63 career receptions. That's one of the first things I look for when I go look up and begin my research on a player is, does he have production catching the football? Because if he does, then okay, now we're talking about translatable NFL skill sets. And, to jump in on Jeremiyah, that's the first thing that kind of jumped out to me when I was watching tape. It's that we've got an NFL ready 3-down running back, right? He has size, don't have verified measurables because he is a true junior, but, estimated at 6'1.5", 214 pounds. So, we're already talking about a guy who's a little more linear, especially relative to some of these other guys that we may talk about. But, he has the frame to be an NFL every down running back. As you mentioned, he's got the rushing production, 18 rushing touchdowns this year. That's pretty remarkable considering that we're playing 12 games. So, averaging greater than 1 rushing touchdown per game, good, production out of the backfield, patience. You see a tough runner inside, but you also see bursts to capture the edge outside. So again, as we're sitting here building the profile of what all can he do? Okay, well, yes, he can be an inside runner. Yes, he can be an outside runner. Yes, he can catch the ball. And one of the most impressive things I thought in watching Jeremiyah's tape was this is a good pass protector, right? I remember watching him. Oh shoot, what was the game that I watched? I think it was Texas A&M. They had an inside blitz coming, and he comes up and stones the linebacker, knocks him on his butt, and you could tell, he's kind of looking over him a little bit, and he's letting him know who hit him. And it's just like, okay, I love it. I love seeing this guy go and face up. All right, you're playing at Notre Dame, high academic school. So, the guy probably has some smarts to him already if he's playing there. But you see him consistently being able to scan and then either get out into a pass route, or you see him be able to scan, identify the rusher, and then get over there and make the block. So again, inside rush, outside rush, pass catcher, pass protector. You're talking about a guy that can be an every down NFL running back, has the size to be it. He has the speed to be it. I didn't see, 4.3. He's not Jahmyr Gibbs, type explosiveness that way, but he has good enough speed. I think he'll be low 4.5s, maybe mid 4.4s if he really, hits the testing numbers well and gets into the training. But, he's certainly going to be fast enough. And then I thought that he was a really good route runner as well. So not only does he catch the ball well, but I think that he has some versatility to go out there. You see him in the slot lined up and not just running, quick hitches and, flat routes. No, he's going down the field and, he's able to, have good body control at the top of the route and get out of a break with good quickness. So, for me, I see everything that an NFL team's going to want to see. If I had a knock on the player, it would be that I think he's, lacks a little bit of short area quickness to really make in kind of those small areas to make a guy miss. But man, you see this dude hurdling guys all the time. Like watching him against Miami, for instance, early in the season, you see him several times. I mean, just being able to elevate up and hurdle a tackler that he sees coming in low. So he does have elusiveness to him. But, like I said, you have to really be nitpicking to try and find a lot of negatives here. And I really liked Rodrik Estime coming out, who, he shared the backfield with his true freshman year there at Notre Dame and has gone on to have a little bit of an NFL career as well.
Yeah. No, again, Jeremiah, the expectations were really high for him. You're playing with a quarterback who's first year starter, young kid, and so that box is going to be loaded. And did he have a slow start to the season? Yeah, I guess you could argue that. Again, averaged over 100 per game, and again, the ball is going to get handed to him 20, 25 times a game, and he's still putting up big numbers. So again, you really appreciate that. Again, it go back. You start making like, is this again what he brings in the run and pass game? Is he Christian McCaffrey ballpark in terms of what he can do in and out of the backfield? Do you think?
I don't know that he's that, elusive. Again, my knock is a little bit of that short area quickness, which is where I really think Christian McCaffrey has separated himself, right? As a modern day NFL running back, I think Christian McCaffrey is as good of a route runner and pass catcher as there, has been in recent NFL history. So I don't know that I would put him up there necessarily with Christian McCaffrey, but I think that, if you're looking at that second tier of legitimate route runner, guy that can do more than just the basics, guy that, and again, I can't overstate, as the importance of pass protection, right? We're paying these quarterbacks $45, $50, $60 million a year. The last thing we can do is put out a rookie running back that doesn't understand his assignment and is getting that guy that we're paying all that money to hit, right? So if you're going to be out there in the NFL, you must know pass protections. You must know blitz identification. And, for him, again, I think those are strong suits of his game. And I think it's going to be an easy transition for him to be able to hit the ground running. So, unlike, the other two running backs we're going to talk about today, and, maybe some of these other in the class, like I really like the Le'Veon Moss kid down at Texas A&M, but he's not in this same conversation as day one starting ability as Jeremiah Love is, in my opinion.
Day one player, we both agree, a little bit shakes out to, again, who's drafting where come that first round time. Again, who's going to trade back from the top of the first to go get Mendoza. Is this a 10 to 15 slot guy? Is this hey, he could be there at 8, 9, 10? Where do you think ultimately, like, hey, if I'm betting the over under, where are you sticking that mark at?
Yeah, I mean, I could see him, really in that kind of 10 to 15 or, type range, 15 to 20, maybe, somewhere in there, right? When you look at guys that have been drafted in recent, history, okay, again, I don't see him as the same as Ashton Jeanty. Obviously, Jeanty didn't have the season for the Raiders that many had predicted and had, perhaps hoped for. Now, Jeanty was 6th overall, so, okay, I don't see him as a top 10 guy. Bijan went 8th. I don't see him as Bijan. Jahmyr Gibbs, I like a little bit more than Jeremiah Love. He went 12th, right? So, as you sit here and start going through it, okay, not all these situations are equal. Sometimes, to your point, if you're trying to trade up in the draft to go get a running back, okay, we have to find a willing trade partner. And there may be a guy at, 12 that, hey, no, we're going to stay here and draft, or another team's moving up to draft a player from a different position. So you may not be able to always align this equally. And that's where I think a lot of people kind of make mistakes when they, think of guys. It's, I want to move on up. Okay, well, you got to find a willing trade partner. And not only do they have to be willing, but you have to be able to come to an agreement on that trade compensation, right? I'm not going to give you a king's ransom every single draft pick, right? If I'm moving up to the top 3 to go draft a quarterback, okay, yeah, I may have to pay the king's ransom. But if we're talking about moving up to, the 10 to 15 range, yes, it's going to come with, either a first round pick next year or a second round pick this year, whatever it may be. But I'm not giving you 2 1s to, move on up. So, again, it always comes down to, what's going to be available as far as the slot's concerned. But I see this player being a mid first round draft pick.
Yeah, we'll throw in some more complication with trades this year. Again, two less minutes in that first round for
Yeah.
NFL teams, which for the viewer at home is really nice. For front offices and GMs that are working the phones, hopefully your prep work is done on a few of these trades as the good ones do. So let's move on from Jeremiah again. Yeah, easy again. If he makes it past again 15 to 17, again I think I'd be surprising. That's going to be the sweet spot for him, and again, he's going to go make somebody really happy somewhere in the NFL next year. Again, you kind of go from tier one to tier two, good players, guys that we're going to see a lot of in the NFL. Jonah Coleman at Washington kind of falls into this category. You got a 4-year guy now, 2 years at Arizona, 2 at Washington. At Washington in 2 years, 349 rushes, 1,811 yards, 25 touchdowns, just over 5 yard career average. Again, 54 receptions in those 2 years as well. So checks the boxes. What do you like about Jonah? Again, how is he kind of different? Where do you see him?
Yeah, and really Jonah is interesting to me because of the way that he's built, right? And again, another guy that we have estimates on, but he's just under 5'9" and just under 230 pounds. So
Thick.
you're almost talking like a Doug Martin type frame, if you will, for the guy. And, you see flashes of that because he's really strong, right? With that stockier frame. And, he's one of those guys, he's got big calves, right? So, all right, now we have some ability to play with power. A little bit different than Jeremiyah Love in that regard. Jeremiyah, while proportionately built, this kid, Jonah Coleman, is very stoutly built, right? So, I really like his play strength. I think he's very instinctive. I really like his run instincts. He runs with vision. He's got good patience to allow blocks. I think he sees it. You see him following his pullers and being able to, kind of slow down his roll and then be able to kind of press the hole a little bit more. He's a good athlete, right? For being shorter, compact. He runs well. I think he's going to be probably mid to low 4.5s when it's all said and done on the 40 time. So, I think you see a guy that has, good movement skills for the running back position, and he catches the ball well. I think he's got natural hands. I don't think he's quite a mismatch running routes to the degree that Jeremiyah Love was, but I think that this is a player, hey, you know what? He can go out there. He's already shown the ability to line up all over the formation, be able to go out there and run routes and be able to, catch the football well down the field. So, really, there's a lot of good things that you can say about Jonah Coleman. So I think he's got inside rush ability with his size. I think he has enough speed and burst to capture the edge running outside. I think he catches the ball well, right? So we're already kind of talking about 3 aspects of his game that do translate to the NFL. Now, although I say that I think that he's got good inside run ability and that he's powerfully built, he's inconsistent from a physical standpoint, right? You want to see this guy run like a big back more consistently, right? He's one of those guys, he's running down the sideline and he runs out of bounds before making contact with a DB. And to me, as an evaluator, and obviously it's easy from the warmth and comfort from my home watching film to say, hey, you need to lower your shoulder and run over that guy, right? For him, hey, look, he's saving a hit and he's protecting his body a little bit, and I can understand that. But at the end of the day, I think when we talk about, hey, for big backs that can impose their will on especially defensive backs, when we get a chance to run over a guy down the field, let's take that opportunity, right? Let's make that corner less desirous of tackling on succeeding plays than preserving ourselves a little bit. Again, I understand that can be perceived 2 different ways, but for me, for Jonah Coleman, finesse also comes in his pass protection. Unlike Jeremiyah Love, that you see go and stone guys in the hole and really, fight physically to block and engage. With Jonah Coleman, I saw a little bit more anvil than hammer, if you will, when it came to contact. And one of the first plays when I was watching their game against Ohio State, you see the linebacker bull rush him straight back into the quarterback. And it's just like, all right, come on, we're 5'9", 230. There's no one that should have a lower center of gravity than you, right? There's no one that should be able to naturally kind of drop their weight and then be able to strike a guy and uncoil and stone him as you should be able to. So for Jonah Coleman, my reluctance or, my negatives on him is that he still needs to, more consistently finish runs physically, plays physically, and especially pass protection physically. That's going to be an area of his game that he's going to need to improve and show NFL coaches and evaluators that, hey, yes, I can be on the field for all 3 downs. Yes, I can, I can contribute on special teams. As you know, Rodrik, if we're not going to be a starting running back, we need to have some special teams value if we want to suit up on Sundays.
Yep.
Otherwise, we're going to go find someone that does, so that we're not giving up kick returns and punt returns for touchdowns. So, for Jonah Coleman, that's going to be his issue. I think he's got, mid to late day 3 NFL draft value as a guy who's going to be able to come in, be a developing player and see if, hey, we can't carve out a role early in the career and then ultimately potentially develop into, perhaps even a starter, perhaps, before his rookie contract's up.
Yeah, no, that pass game value is a huge one because, again, while the 54 receptions, that's a good number across 2 years, it's check downs, screen game. Again, not that dynamic. You're going to have a hard time splitting him out and asking him to beat many NFL linebackers. But again, he can catch the ball when you throw it to him. Certainly, again, the pass protection plays into it. Again, and this is where us sitting at home, the question I had looking at his playtime was, it was really limited down the stretch. And of course, you start asking that health question, which is always one of the big ones. We talked about the wear and tear, the getting beat up, and where scouts, again, how was he in the training room? How was he recovering his body? Where Jeremiyah Love was really consistent playtime while getting beat up. Jonah's really down the stretch, it looked like you were maybe starting to struggle a little bit. Again, 4 years in college, more carries. That is where the real scouting work, and then you kick it off to your athletic trainers and your doctors, and again, make a lot of additional decisions which absolutely affect guys like this. And if I'm going to take him in the 5th round, is he a 6th round guy for us? Or again, are we talking about him in the 7th round there? Because again, he's a good player. I expect to see him playing on Sundays in some capacity. And you hope he has a good pre-draft process because he's a good player that, again, brings some nice stuff to the table. Let's hit one more here as we're going long, but again, hopefully the people are enjoying it. And we're gonna go down to Georgia Tech and talk about a really different stylistically running back, Jamal Haynes. This is a 5-year guy at Georgia Tech. He redshirted and backed up, then switched from wide receiver to running back. Will probably come up a little bit. 5.5 yard career average. 2023 as a running back was his best year. That he had 6.1 yards per carry, 1,059 yards. He just had 116 carries, 4.3 average this year, 31 receptions as well. We're going to talk about that. The question I pulled it up, only 3 kick returns in his career. So again, the return value is not quite there. That again, maybe you start to watch this player, you think about. What are your thoughts on Jamal Haynes? What do you like about him, and where do you see his NFL future?
Yeah, man, and you keep really steal my thunder here, Rodrik, because I was going to bring up those only 64 career kickoff return yards. For Jamal Haynes, I've got verified measurables on him at 5.065, 184, right? So we're talking about a smaller, really undersized running back. However, there is a caveat there, because whereas he's 5'6.5", 184 pounds, like, okay, he's not terribly thin. He's not terribly lean. He's not some, diminutive or, fully small player. So he does have some, proportion to him. He does have size that way. But at the end of the day, he's still short. And, 184 pounds, we're still going to come in under the mark for an NFL every down running back, obviously. So now we're already talking about more of a gadget. We're talking about a third down, type of change of pace back, if you will. And you really want to see someone like that with return ability, right? You want that skill set to translate in the kicking game and to give you the opportunity to, be explosive in that phase, because 5.065 is probably not going to lend itself to, running down and being a 4-core special teams player, right? Otherwise. So, that part does hurt his NFL value. But, the wide receiver turned running back, I think, does bode well for him. And he had been productive, especially as you mentioned, Rodrik, 3 years ago, his first year moving to running back. They did have another running back this year, number 0, that, you could tell they wanted to get some play time too. So he's splitting time. And you live in Atlanta or you're down in Georgia area. So, you know what? Haynes King is king supreme there for Georgia Tech offense. And, you watch him run RPOs. He's keeping that ball more times than he's giving it to the running back. So I did think that, for Jamal, he suffered slightly because of that. And he could have had some more carries. But look, his production was his production. My job as an evaluator is to project, right? My job is to look at what he's done and say, hey, what can he do at the next level? For me, he's a slasher style guy. He's got quick feet. He's got good stop and restart ability. I like his vision. He sees cutback lanes well, and I think his top end's going to be good enough. I think he'll be a 4.50, low 4.5, perhaps high 4.4 type runner. He's got burst running, so he's able to run outside. I think he's tough. He drives his legs on contact. So again, he's not a power back by any stretch, but he's not finesse either for being a shorter and smaller, NFL running back here. He does catch the ball well. Obviously, his background as a wide receiver kind of comes into play. He's a willing blocker in pass pro. So, for me, I can take a smaller guy in pass protection so long as you're willing to stick your face in there and, run your feet and hopefully buy our quarterback, 2.5, perhaps even 3 seconds extra so that we can get that ball out of there. So, for me, I appreciate the fact that he's not fully finessed that way. My biggest issue with him is that he's straight lined. And I think, whether it's tight hips or whether it's just narrow hips from his build, it just hampers his overall elusiveness. And, the one knock I have on him from an instinctual, standpoint is that when that hole doesn't really present itself, he can be a little indecisive. And I think that he wants to be really fast and get downhill and do some things. And when he doesn't know where, he's just really kind of choppy and can be indecisive when ultimately sticking his foot in the ground and designating where he's going. So at any rate, sometimes I think when you get smaller running backs, he's going to be more of a cut blocker on edge, right? He's, not going to be a great inside runner. So again, to me, he's a specialty back. The lack of special teams value really comes into play. And because of that, I really can't go any higher than a 7th round on the guy. And realistically, I think he's going to ultimately be a PFA for the NFL just because of that, right? And that's, again, not a knock necessarily on what he's done in college, but just projecting to the next level, finding that NFL value. When you're already not going to be a starter, you have some limiting factors, and now you're not a special teams contributor, you've got an uphill battle making that 46 and even that 53.
Yeah, you hit on it when you were talking about Latavius Murray, and it seemed like when I was in Atlanta, that running back position, you would end up with more late day 3 guys that maybe had that borderline day 2 grade on them, and by the same argument, a bunch of UDFA priority guys probably had a day 3 grade. Again, they were a role running back. They were, again, whether it's that first and second down, that change of pace guy, that gadget guy, and there's so many of them. There's a lot of good players in that position. So again, it becomes kind of a big bucket. And again, all right, then it just comes down to one team having a preference on a player like this. And I think, again, the player that was popping up in my mind, making that transition, Kenny Gainwell out of Memphis. Now, Kenny was super productive over multiple years, had the special teams value, but was a little bit thinner and more narrow than Jamal is. So again, I was wondering, like, what team sees a role for this guy in a Deebo Samuel type of role, in a JD McKissick type of role. Again, JD was a UDFA that, had a couple good years in the NFL. And again, all of a sudden it's like, well, again, if a team has a vision for a player like this, all of a sudden that's when they get their name called. There's going to be the conversation. You want him to test well. You want him to answer some questions through the process. But at this end of the day, again, you are facing an uphill battle at that position with all that's gone on. But again, a good player that, again, he ends up being a fun one during preseason because coaches can do a lot with him. And again, maybe just allows you to get out of some games in some different ways. And again, I'm right there with you. Again, he's one of those tough ones where because of the vision, he should be a zone back, but because of potential vision and instinct issues, it's like, all right, I don't know if I want to run him in a gap scheme. And, gap scheme is, not as much of it as a zone scheme. We'll say it that way. That again, everybody's going to run a little bit of both, but again, the zone is just so prevalent. But that wraps our 3 running backs. Again, that's a good group and really 3 different flavors of running back. And again, if your team goes out and gets Jeremiyah Love, you should be happy. I don't care. It's a running back. He's a really good NFL player. Jonah's going to have a good career. And Jamal's one of those guys, again, with his career, 5 years at Tech, again, all that him, Haynes, that kind of senior group this year did for Georgia Tech. And he's one of those guys you'd love to bet on through the process and see him go have an NFL future. But if you agree, if you disagree, please go over, tell us, hit us up on Twitter at D Vandernat or at RightStepADV. Let us know your thoughts. Ask us questions on other running backs, who your team should be looking at, or maybe who should be going drafted here, there, or the other. Make sure you're checking out every episode of this podcast. Make sure you're following Dane and myself and in everything you're doing scouting. Dane, really appreciate you being on, and enjoy the holiday season. Get some time, keep evaluating, and we'll look forward to the next time.
Absolutely. Appreciate you having me on, and happy holidays to everyone.